Yo, what's going on guys? My name is Alex, and the season has officially begun. However, I want to talk about the Brooklyn Nets before we get too deep into the season. The Nets, in my opinion, are such a wildcard team, and while this has a big part to do with their players, I actually believe it's because of what their expectations have been since KD and Kyrie have both shown up, and what has actually transpired during their time here. See, ever since Kevin Durant and Kyrie have joined the Nets back in 2020, the expectation has always been finals contenders or championship favorites, at least when KD recovers from his Achilles injury. The first year was a wash since KD wasn't expected to come back until 2021, and the Nets weren't even going to make any noise in the playoffs with Kyrie because he only played 20 games that year. Well, at least that was the assumption. Even without the offensive duo, the Nets still went 35-37 in a COVID-shortened season, and were the 7th seed in the East. This was due to the talent that was still on the Nets like Spencer Dinwiddie and Joe Harris, who averaged 20 points and 18 points per game respectively, and the young talent in Karis LeVert, Jared Allen, and Nick Claxton. They played the Raptors in the first round, led by Pascal Siakam, Kyle Lowry, and Fred VanVleet, so they didn't stand a chance, but this was a great sign for the Nets now that next season they were going to have all the pieces plus 2 more stars. The start of next season was filled with high expectations, and those expectations didn't age well. In the first 13 games, the Nets went 7-6, and Kyrie also missed 6 of those games due to injury. To ensure the Nets were going to be better, they decided to make a blockbuster 3-team trade in which they sent Jared Allen, Karis LeVert, 3 first-round picks, and 2 other players to Houston and Cleveland for James Harden. To most, this solidified the Nets as a championship contender since a new super team was formed. However, many skeptics believe that if anything, they didn't move the needle at all. They lost all their depth because of this trade, and Spencer Dinwiddie went down with a season-ending ACL injury. In addition, the Nets had concerns before the trade in terms of their defense, but with Jared Allen being traded, the defensive lapses were going to be more obvious. Despite this, the Nets still won 48 games, which seems low, but when taking into account that the big three were battling injuries all year and the season was only 72 games long, it was actually not bad. KD only played 35 games, Harden played 36, and Kyrie actually played the most with 54. And with all three coming into the playoffs healthy, the expectation for the Nets were still set at a championship favorite. They played the Celtics in the first round and 1-5, and it was done in a pretty convincing manner. Next was the Bucks, where things got a little bit more interesting. The series went to 7, but there were many twists and turns along the way. Kyrie got injured in Game 4, and he didn't play for the rest of the series, and James Harden was playing on an injured hamstring he got 43 seconds into Game 1. Despite this, KD was playing at his absolute best since his Achilles injury. He averaged 35, 10, and 5 in this series, and in Game 7 he dropped 48 points, but unfortunately, when he had a chance to win the game, his foot was on the 3-point line, but it was sent into overtime, and KD didn't perform well in OT. He went 0 for 6 in overtime, and this let the Bucks move on into the conference finals and eventually win the 2021 championship. Although this was a disappointing finish to their season, the future looks bright as long as the big three were able to stay healthy. However, the next season brought even more headache. Kyrie did not play a majority of the season due to his unwillingness to get the COVID vaccine that allowed him to play teams like the Raptors, the Warriors, and even in Brooklyn. And it wasn't until the end of the season where the Nets allowed him to come back as a part-time player. KD also only played 55 games, and James Harden seemed to be affected by all of this and his hamstring injury from the season prior. Harden eventually got traded to the 76ers for Ben Simmons, Andre Drummond, and Seth Curry. This actually wasn't that bad of a trade for the Nets, as they got more defense with Simmons and the depth with Drummond and Curry, which is something that they needed. However, Simmons didn't play due to mental health reasons and a back injury. Despite all this, the Nets still won 44 games and had to face the second-seeded Celtics. And with Kyrie back for the playoffs since he could play at home due to the city of Brooklyn changing their mandated rules, many believed the Nets could win against the Celtics despite all the drama and how well-rounded and on fire the Celtics were at the end of the season. This didn't happen though. The Nets were swept by the Celtics, and although the final scores were all close, if you actually watched those games, it never felt like the Nets were close to winning except for Game 1. KD played badly all series long. He did average 26 points, but he only shot 38% from the field, and he averaged 5 turnovers in that series. This was the absolute lowest the team has been, and based on everything that's happened since 2020, it felt like this falling crash was bound to happen. Going into this season, Kevin Durant asked for a trade, which after months of speculating where he would go, he ended up just staying in Brooklyn. The Nets also signed some more pieces to help, like TJ Warren and Royce O'Neal. Ben Simmons is also healthy again, so he will be available to play. And even with all of this, I still don't believe in the Nets. Sure, on paper, the Nets should be a team to look out for in the East. However, with what we've seen in the past 2 seasons, I just don't know how I can think, or anyone can honestly think, that the Nets will change. They have dealt with injuries ever since KD and Kyrie have showed up, and I don't expect that to change for the season, especially since these injuries are affecting their star players. In addition, the Nets have struggled on the defensive end for the past 2 to 3 years, which is why I have always not fully bought into this team that they have. Sure, Ben Simmons is a great defensive player, and in the last full season that he played, he was a runner-up for Defensive Player of the Year. However, I don't think he'll be able to carry the Nets to a good enough defense, simply because outside of him, Royce O'Neal and Nick Claxton, there are not even any average defenders on this team. And speaking of Ben Simmons, there is always a concern that by the time we get into the playoffs, he will have another disappointing performance that will ultimately hurt his team due to him not being able to be on the court, because of his lack of shooting and aggression towards the rim. I think we should also consider the fact that there are just better teams in the Eastern Conference. In my opinion, the Bucks, the 76ers, the Celtics, the Heat, they're all better than the Nets, and I think you can make an argument that the Cavs could be better than the Nets with them now having Donovan Mitchell on their team, and them just being a young, upcoming team. Not only have these teams gotten better, but they've also shown more consistency in the past that makes me more comfortable with their future than the Nets. Everything about the Nets is about how good they look on paper, and that KD and Kyrie alone can make it work. But this has not been proven yet, and I'm not sure it will. To me, the Nets have the most to prove this season, and they have to make it to the conference finals, because if they underachieve again, they really just might have to start over and actually trade KD this time, but also have to trade Kyrie. Well, those are my thoughts on the Nets. Let me know what y'all think in the comments below. If you enjoyed, make sure you like and sub. Lastly, check out this video where I discuss the Suns and why they're in trouble this season. See y'all in the next one. Peace out.